It's a system. If there are 5 functions in the process from start to finish, whatever function that person is in, once they get thoroughly trained and up to speed in their primary function, say it's function 3, you cross-train them one function upstream or downstream. So if I do function 3, I'm going to cross-train into function 2 or function 4. If I am in function 4, I cross-train into function 3 or 5. If I'm in 2, I cross-train into 1 or 3. And if you're in 1 and 5, I mean, you can get kind of creative then, but at least if I'm 1, then I'm at least cross-training in 2. If I'm 5, I'm at least cross-training in 4.
In today's chapter of the Business Library, we're going to be talking about logistics. And no, logistics are not boring. They're one of the most crucial parts of every real brick and mortar business. If you're not online, you need logistics. And most people watching this are probably wasting a lot of money on logistics, I imagine, as well, which is why I've got Adrian on here, because he's an expert when it comes to that kind of stuff. He's worked for some of the giants in the game, and now he's helping small to medium-sized warehouses really optimize the logistics sides of things so they can make more money, have high profit margins for the same work, which to me sounds like a goddamn good deal. Like, if you don't take that one, that's kind of silly. So thank you very much for being here, Adrian. And just to start off with, working some of those giants, Walmart, Amazon, FedEx, what are some of the things you have learned?
So number one, Mads, thanks for having me on the show. And working with the giants, here's one thing that they did very well. They understood everything that it took to do one order, 10, 100, or 1,000 orders, right? So, for example, I knew that it took, let's say, example, 10 pickers, 25 packers, and 5 shippers to load 10,000 cases. So if my ultimate goal is 200,000 cases, then I pretty much have to scale by the head count it takes to do 10,000 until I get all the way up to 200,000. And, that's where a lot of people feel like I just have to throw bodies at it. When the reality is, if you just go from 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, and you can control the ramp up to full maturity in your operation.
Also, imagine if you just throw bodies at it, the effectiveness is going to start decreasing because
Absolutely.
You're going to hit limits and bureaucracy and all of that. Not so fun stuff.
Right. It's definitely a point of diminishing returns, and it happens very quick.
Yeah. When you're speaking about those big numbers, it can get out of control pretty rapidly, and most cases, once you realize it's out of control, it's probably too late. You should have fixed that a long time ago.
Right. And just to go one level deeper, knowing what it takes to do 1, 10, 100 orders is fine, but you still have to know what it takes for each function, right? And then you have to know how they came up with that number, which we call standards or metrics, whatever you call them. This is a rate of expectation. For every dollar that you pay somebody an hour, you expect X amount of performance in return. Well, these standards are what an average person can do on an average day under average circumstances. We define to people an average day as a day that ends in Y, where the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Average circumstances are we have work, we have the equipment, we have the infrastructure. So then you ask people, how many of you guys are just average? And most people say nobody puts their hand up, maybe 2 people out of 100. And then I ask everybody, so you must be below average. And then I get, scoffs. And then well, what are you? And then most people say above average. And then I say, well, these are the average numbers, what an average person can do. And only these 2 people said they're average. So the rest of you guys should have no problem hitting or exceeding these numbers. And now they're starting to think. So that's one extra thing I would add into that.
Almost like a little trap.
It is, definitely, for sure.
I like how you frame that one up. And a little bit of work I've done with logistics. A big part of making a bigger operation, actually just any operation run smoothly, is having, what's the right word for it? People being able to do multiple jobs. So if you're a packer, you should also be able to load the pallets into the truck. At least you need to have like a good amount of overlap right there, because why is my webcam always doing this? I'm always having a good time as soon as I hit record. It starts zooming in.
Awesome effect.
Yeah, well, it kind of led to some memorable conversations, I'll tell you that much. But in the way of having that overlap, because how often are all the average circumstances hit in a fluid environment? A lot of the times goes left and
So
right.
so we'll go with the standard bell curve, and 65% of the time things are average, one standard deviation. And then you're going to have, and we're going to talk about the cross training, right? Because you do need to have, people that wear multiple hats. And so instead of anybody trying to overcomplicate it or figuring out where to start, use this very simple framework to figure out how to do it and do it effectively. It's a system. If there are 5 functions in the process from start to finish, whatever function that person is in, once they get thoroughly trained and up to speed in their primary function, say it's function 3, you cross train them one function upstream or downstream. So if I do function 3, I'm going to cross train into function 2 or function 4. If I am in function 4, I cross train into function 3 or 5. If I'm in 2, I cross train into 1 or 3. And if you're in 1 and 5, I mean, you can get kind of creative then, but at least if I'm 1, then I'm at least cross training in 2. If I'm 5, I'm at least cross training in 4.
Yeah, when most people, when you count like that, at least around the table, then you just loop around and you're back at 1.
Right.
So don't make it too complicated. But one of the things regarding cross training I also want to ask you about is one of the things you had publicly is you jumped in as a loader once. And I wanted to hear a little bit about how that like taught you and also how that helped your leadership and problem solving skills.
Number one thing it taught me is to not avoid, or the thing that I was avoiding the most is the thing I needed to do the most. Everybody had a certain set of trucks, and it's not like loading a trailer where you just put the box in it. There was a certain order and sequence that the truck needed to be loaded in, but the boxes did not come down in that order. So it's almost like you're saying the alphabet one letter at a time, and the alphabets aren't coming to you in order. And every truck had a different order. So I relied on this guy to come in for a long time. Never got around to cross training. And one day he didn't come in. And it turned out he was sick. So most people aren't sick for a day. So he was sick for several days. It got very painful very quickly. And as I was kind of feeling sorry for myself, oh my gosh, woe is me. Look, this is so difficult. My manager told me, Adrian, what you fail to train, you will become. So because I failed to train a backup package handler for that load set, I ended up having to be the backup package handler for that load set. And I still was required to run the rest of my error. So that was a very painful experience. And I made sure that I did what I needed to avoid that with that package handler and their van set. But then I started systematically going through the whole area and saying, hey, I need at least one other person who knows somebody else's function. So if anybody's out, there's no loss in business continuity.
I understand that part because, well, some things you have to learn the hard way. And also, I know you're going to be, if the truck or the van or whatever you're packing, if it's not packed in the right system, you're going to be the most hated person in the entire company for that day because everything just goes left.
Oh
I
yeah.
work. Yeah, go ahead.
I got cussed out plenty of times by the drivers. So after you struggle for 4 hours trying to keep up because everything's moving full speed and you can only move about half speed because you've never done it before, then the drivers come in and they're independent contractors. So when you have their truck out of order, you are literally slowing them down and impacting their money. So they're going to tell you exactly how they feel about you making their day more challenging than it has to be. And yeah, you learn very quickly from experiences like that.
Yeah, you don't want to experience that one again. Yeah,
No.
the only part of the job like close to that I've done, we did hire, we had our own drivers, so they weren't too worried about that because they were getting paid whilst the truck was getting loaded on the van in this case. But I was doing like the last mile bit, sitting in the office looking at all the numbers and solving the problems on the road. And if the truck wasn't packed properly, you could see like the KPIs just just starting getting worse, 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 and worse. And even like did like a good end curve at the final bit of it, because at that point the entire van was just scattered with things, so you couldn't find a thing. It was basically impossible. And unloading pallets onto the other one, and yeah, just I wouldn't say it was not a very fun experience because I didn't experience it. I was just sitting in the office hearing them complain about it. And luckily, I wasn't in the firing line because they know I didn't go down there packing anything. So, but yeah, they weren't very appreciated like that. There were definitely a lot of, well, not cussing, but not nice words said about them, at least.
Yeah, they were
And
definitely unpleasant words.
yeah, you weren't a very, very popular person. I wouldn't want to go out if I was the one packing that van, going out and helping the guy, because he'd probably get more annoyed of me coming out there than he would get positive if somebody came out and helped him. He'd be like, nah, I'll deal with this myself. You screwed everything
Right.
up so far, don't screw anything up more. Like, I know. Please no. But what is going more like down the line of the podcast, the storyline? What is some of the expensive mistakes, fixes people are making, which could just be low cost fixes instead, still having that same high impact?
One of the biggest ones for me is like if you want to get more out of your operation, a lot of people get stuck on wanting to work Monday through Fridays and they're 5/8. I can't tell you how many times, it's almost 100% of the companies that the warehouse workers work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, that they end up working nines, tens, and often Saturdays, right? And they will do that extensively for years on end, all so they don't work on Sunday. Now, I don't care if I work on Sunday as long as I can get more than one day off a week and I can enjoy it. So, oftentimes, if you really want to get more throughput, everybody likes to say Monday's so heavy, Monday's so heavy. Well, think about it, Mads. When do most people go shopping? On Saturday and Sunday. So
Yeah,
if your operation is closed on Saturday and Sunday and everybody's just buying stuff, buying stuff, buying stuff, and you didn't run for 2 days, of course your Monday's going to be heavy. But it takes very little to find people who want to work the weekend. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. 3 12-hour days. And these people will say, you know what? The steak tastes the same Tuesday through Friday. The beer tastes the same Tuesday through Friday. As a matter of fact, there's nobody at the doctor's office Tuesday through Friday. There's nobody
true.
at the grocery store. There's nobody at the car dealership. There's nobody at the amusement park. So you can actually get more done throughout the week. And there are a ton of people who would be thrilled to work 3 days a week and still get a full paycheck.
Yeah, that's always been a thing for me, is like, why don't do that? Like, there's a bunch of reasons why people don't do it over here. They'll give you a bunch of reasons, which is just on that average human, not really tailoring to that individual. But you're still spending the same time going to work and going back.
Yep.
If it's a 1 hour day, 4 hour day, 8 hour day, 12 hour day, you're actually going to spend a lot less time if you
Yep.
just work 3 days, because you only make that journey 3 times instead of 5. On a year, that's 2 times 50. Well, you don't work 50 weeks, but around 100 trips you save on a yearly basis. And speaking to Americans and knowing how massive that place is, that could be a lot of time on a yearly basis. I imagine there's a lot of people driving over an hour back and forth from work
Yeah,
in
it
the US.
is. It
Over here,
is. And the hours, it's real simple, right? Every hour of time and a half, you're paying them 150% of their normal pay, but you're still only expecting 100% of the expectation. So you're already losing money right there versus having a straight time team who works the weekend. So now you're still getting work during that time of the week, but at a lower or normal standard wage rate versus a premium.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask you that because over here, most cases it's just double, get double. If it's on like a Sunday, you also a lot of spaces get double, but like warehouses, that kind of stuff, transportation, there is certain things and those kind of agreements they've come to with the companies because well, they normally have open Sundays, but if you all of a sudden have to pay people double, it becomes hard making money. And how many
Absolutely.
people do you see that don't really account having to pay people 150% extra into their budget?
It's a lot. And what they're looking at is, oh, my total head count is low. Yes, but your percentage of overtime is exceeds what's budgeted. And I would just say this: determine what your busiest season of the year is. That's when you can expect to run a percentage of overtime. If you're running that kind of overtime outside of the busy season, then you need to either hire more people or hire better people. It's one of the two,
Yeah,
or it's both, right? So there was once upon a time we were running overtime in February, which is a very light time of the year for general
that's kind of
retail.
weird. Yeah.
But I'll tell you what happened, and it kind of goes down to one of the further questions that may get asked is what happened was they said we are increasing our marketing efforts to increase customer awareness about specifically what we do. And it worked. And at the beginning of February in America is the Super Bowl. So all through the football season and the playoffs, culminating on a Super Bowl, our services were marketed very well, and it yielded an increased volume of orders. Well, we ignored that message and we failed to make adjustments. And so what happened is we were inundated with orders, and that increase in sales volume translated to an immediate increase in late orders. So we were working 2 days of overtime, mandatory, in February, up to the point where they had to kind of readjust the marketing strategy until our operations staff was able to keep up.
That's kind of an oopsie. Maybe plan a little bit for your marketing is going to work. Like, why else implement it?
Right.
That's kind of silly, I would say so. And going more down the line of like having not to spend a whole lot of extra money uh, to scale up like operation. Of course, there's going to be like in most cases a little bit of spending. But what are some of the ways to like really increase the productivity without breaking the budget?
So yeah, number one, again, it's going to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but it still goes back to cross training, right? And it's cross training offsets a lot of overtime, right? So peak season for the stores and customers is about a week or two before Black Friday if you're a store, and Black Friday if you're a fulfillment center, right? From that time until a few days before Christmas, everybody and their mother is in outbound. They're picking, they're packing, they're shipping. All the inbound team, all the quality control, all the inventory. It's an all hands on deck. Now, once everybody has cross trained or moved to outbound, then you have overtime to make up the difference. Prior to that, from about September leading up to about a week or two before Black Friday, is the inbound peak. So that means outbound's not doing anything. So instead of burning out inbound and making them work all this overtime, take the outbound team who's not doing anything, and if you cross trained them before the volume got there, they should be able to effectively help you pull in that volume without the need for overtime. And because you spent the time to cross train them effectively, they can actually do it at a rate where you're still making money.
I like that. And with you mentioning cross training again, I have to ask you, how do you cross train effectively? Can you go into like a bit more of the details of how you would personally do it?
Yeah, so first we identify the roles within a shift that only one person on that shift is doing it. Let's say like a wave planner. There's really only one wave planner needed. Okay, we write that down in the Excel spreadsheet. Then we say, I need three more people. I need the names of three more people that want to do it, are capable of doing it, and are competent enough to be trained. And here's why. One person can be out on vacation. Life is going to happen to somebody they're going to call in. The third person is going to be on jury duty. There's nothing you can do about that. You can't deny that. It's jury duty. And then the fourth one, they may not be the best person, but at least they know what to do. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a company with 100, 200, 500, and 1,000 people where one person goes on vacation and the operation suffers until that person comes back. Even worse, when that person goes on vacation, they're still answering company emails and phone calls. That leads to incredibly poor employee experience. And there's only a matter of time before you burn out that associate or you piss them off and they just go find employment elsewhere. So that's usually where I start with the critical roles. And then again, immediately after, let's say, Madge, you're a picker. Okay, every single day, here's how you did. Here's what you can do better. Let's go again. At the end of those 30 days, you're going to learn how to put away, which is one function ahead of picking, or you're going to learn how to pack, which is one function after packing. And I'm going to, let's say I have the team to do this much volume, and I only have this much volume. Well, this many hours, I'm going to dedicate to cross training. It doesn't need to be a lot every day. It just needs to be something every day. It's kind of like going to the gym. You don't need to go all day, every day, but you do probably need to do something every day.
Yeah, like moving forward, just making sure that at least you're taking one step at minimum each day just to keep up that momentum.
Yeah. Ooh. So here's two things companies always say. They say that, and they're two extremes. They will say, "Oh, well, we don't have enough volume to cross train." Strike one and two. Then you wait until it's too much volume, and then you say, it's too much volume. I don't have time to cross train. And I just gave everybody the answer to how to do it. If you can do 10,000 units and you only have to do 8,500 that day, you can train 15% of your staff on another function. You have to put that money back in the bank so that when you have to tap into that person to be outside of their primary function, they can actually yield some results that matter.
That's very true. That's very true. I like the bank analogy as well. It makes it easy to visualize, easy to understand. And one thing I thought about having this conversation with you is if I was, let's say, a picker like the example you gave, I would find that notoriously boring because it's a very repetitive job. So how do you keep people motivated, engaged in their work when it's not the most fulfilling work in the world?
So it's people are tend to be naturally competitive, right? That's with themselves and especially with others. So once upon a time, the rate was like 100, and it was 1,000 for the day. Pick 1,000 units. And the very first time where I had to congratulate people for leading the pack. Hey, our highest number for the day is 875. Our highest number for the day is 950. And then congratulated the person who first got 1,000 units. And then I still shouted out the people who were at 900. And I said, you guys are in the wings. I see you. Well, then the next day, two people got there above 1,000, but three more people got above 900. And every single day, if you just acknowledge people's efforts, they'll give you the rest. It got to the point where four people made 1,000, 10 people over 900, 10 people are over 1,000, 25 people over 900. Half the people are over 1,000, and only 10 people are below 900. And then you can start incentivizing things. And for the most part, I know we make fun of people buying pizza as if that's going to solve all the employee engagement issues. It's not. But for the most part, man, people are getting up early to get to work, and the first thing they're going to sacrifice is packing a meal to make sure they get there on time. So if you
Very
can throw them something, if not a gift card, I know some companies say, "Oh, we can't do gift cards." Hey, look, man, I'll just take some good food, some decent food, because I'm tired of eating these snack crackers and Slim Jims. So, and honestly, I would say, well, what do you guys want? And they would say something they want. It's not always pizza and wings. And if any company says, "Oh, that's too much," I said, "Well, how much money are they saving by everybody being at this expectation versus only 50% of them being at the expectation?" And I said, once they do that for a week and sustain that, here's the amount of money they made. Here's the cost of what they're asking for. This is a no brainer. If you give it to them, they will give it back to you.
I love you use the word acknowledgement and acknowledgement in leadership. It's one of my favorite things when it comes to leading other people and teaching other people as well. Because if you don't tell a person they're doing a great job, how are they supposed to know they need to keep doing this? Like you're
Right.
gonna leave them confused as hell if you don't like actually go out and say it to them. And at first I thought, well, that's logical. What's a good job? What's not? But my logic compared to their logic, it's different. We don't find the same things logical, which is why we need to verbalize when people are doing things they're not supposed to do in a nice way, of course, but also when they're doing what they're supposed to do, and also especially when they're going above and beyond. Like you need to be there for those people, and it is what makes a
Yeah.
massive difference.
So, here's the best way to let somebody know that there's a gap in performance, right? You can say, "Oh, you suck. You didn't do this. That's horrible." You can say, "Hey, here's what you do well, the things you do well. Keep doing these. Here are some things that I'm observing that you can do better. Here are some things you could do better." That's a whole lot more positive than what you did wrong. What you did
Yeah,
wrong is 100% negative. What you can do better says, "Hey, here's where you are. Here's where we need you. Here's what I could see you doing differently to get there." Same, accomplishing the same thing is addressing the gaps, but in a way where they retain it and they're looking forward to adjusting their efforts and outputs in order to get there. Because it's rarely is it that I'm asking somebody to work harder. It's just to follow a process or work smarter.
it is a limit of how hard people can work, and
Yeah.
also if it's employees, they don't care as much about the company as all the other people. Like if you can't expect an employee to care as much as you do as an owner for a company, they're not. It's not gonna happen.
Right.
And
Now, here's the thing. That's why a big thing I'm a proponent of is, utilizing the system to do the heavy lifting, right? And a lot of people will buy us a software and say, "Oh, I got the software. Everything's gonna be great now." Well, no, it's not. You still have to. I can buy a sports car, but if I don't know how to shift gears, who cares? I'm gonna get smoked by every Honda Civic out there. I'm gonna get smoked by
yeah,
minivans, right? So you have to know like when the system needs to be in first gear to get off the line very quickly, and when it needs to be in the overdrive when you can cruise and when you can coast. So there's a time and a
you're
place for all of it.
you're here with all the good analogies,
Thank you, sir.
almost like you practiced them a bit before. Seems like
Well,
at least you said
I've
it
been,
before.
I've been doing this for, this is my 25th year in the industry, and at some point, it is the same stuff, right? We know there are 4 quarters every year. Quarter one's the lightest. Quarter two's Quarter three's a little bit busy, and quarter four is all out, right? So once you see the same cycle a couple of times, that's where this is what continuous improvement is. It's like if we knew, Black Friday was the busiest day of the year in 2023. Did we do anything different to plan for it in 2024? And are we going to do anything different to plan for it in 2025?
If you don't change what you're doing, it's kind of insanity not to expect a different result. Like, it
Right.
could be a process, it could be hiring more people. There's a lot of different solutions you can utilize to fix a problem. It's all about finding the one that's most effective for you. But I got to ask, how old are you actually? Because with 25 years in the industry, it seems like you're holding up pretty well.
Well, I just made 42 probably about 2.5 weeks ago.
I want to shut you to like early 30s, mid 30s,
I've
that
done
area.
everything in my 30s already.
Actually,
Everything
yes.
in the 30s.
That's impressive. That's impressive. But I guess
Thank
that
you, sir.
kind of goes to show if you have the right processes in place and the right team, the right system, then you don't have to get burned out and your body take an absolute hit for you just trying to push through everything and are actually strategic about what you're doing. And for the listeners that listening, watching us today, like, what is kind of as a summary, what are some of the things they can do to really scale up their warehouse operations and also avoid some of the key mistakes?
This horse is pretty dead right now, but I'm gonna beat it again. So if you have one 5 day a week, 8 hour shift, you have one person who can do this. That's all you need. Now, if you need to get more volume out and you've maxed out your head count because you only have so many forklifts, you only have so many devices, well, then you add a second shift. And if you have two 5 day a week, 8 hour shifts and you start maxing out, then you can go to 4 10s and 3 12s, right? And when you have four distinct shifts, now you have the opportunity for more people to promote. And again, once you get to the single person on shift A, three backups, shift B, three backups, shift C, three backups, shift D, three backups. As the business continues to grow and you say, okay, we've maxed out warehouse number one. Now we're going to open up warehouse number two. Because you have done all that cross training the entire time, you have enough competent people who can go to warehouse number two and confidently launch it because you know they're ready because they ran warehouse A. And then you also have the people who can stay behind and there's no loss in output in the original facility. And now you have two facilities that operate the exact same way. And when you can do that, that is the definition of scale. Everything else is just a buzzword. That's the definition of scale.
Great summary. And for the people that want to learn more about you, maybe connect with you to see how they can you can specifically go in and help them scale. What is a logical next step? Where's a good place to reach you? All links will be down below in the description, of course.
Yeah, the best way to reach me is to hop on my calendar. I can drop my calendar link in the chat, or is it going to be?
I'm going to put it there afterwards once
Yeah,
I upload the
absolutely.
video.
The best way to get in touch with me is to hop on my calendar link, and then we can have a 30-minute complimentary consultation to discuss what that looks like for you.
I appreciate you coming on the Business Library today, Adrian, having a good conversation with me about logistics and also leadership training people. I really appreciate it, and that should be everything.
Again, thank you for having me, Mads.